Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to learn about multiple time frame with visuals. Basically, before when I was trying to teach you guys this, I didn't have the permission to teach it like this, but I talked to my mentor, so it's really hard to explain it without leaking his stuff, but he pretty much said, go ahead. So we're good now. I'm gonna explain this for you in the best possible way. And it's complicated at first, but once you understand and you memorize this chart and you memorize this chart, then it'll be really easy for you to grasp multiple time frame. Okay. One thing I want to note before we start this is about adaptability and being biasless. So when you're trading and you want to ping pong or whatever, which you shouldn't even be fascinated by that anyways. Ping ponging is not something that you should try to strive for. You shouldn't be like, my goal is to ping pong the markets. It's never it. And if you're doing that, I promise you, you're going to blow your fucking account every time. The only reason you should be ping ponging is when it makes sense to do it. Okay. You don't just do it just to do it, just to try to impress yourself or your friends or your family or your Instagram or whatever. That's not the reason you do that. Okay. There's specific reasons that you're ping ponging. Okay. And most of the time it's to hedge a position, because I can teach you how to ping pong, but you're going to ping pong for no reason and end up break even because you just, you don't know how to take profit from a ping pong. If I have a buy and I have a sell and I want to ping pong and hold both positions, one of those positions is going to lose. So it technically doesn't even matter if you ping pong, right? So if I'm taking a buy and I'm taking a sell and then my buy passes my sell eventually, then that whole sell idea was dumb, right? It didn't make sense to risk more money into the market without knowing how to take profit properly, right? So I've seen people ping ponging, weekly and monthly charts, and it's funny because eventually one of those is going to run out. It's just the way the markets, move. And the only reason you should be taking it is to hedge a position, right? That you're kind of unsure about the direction of it. But you should also be understanding your higher time frame. So people that are masters at higher time frame and they understand the flow of the market, because the market is also directionless. So for example, like if I know like my monthly direction is buys and I am taking weekly sells, then I know I have to take profit on my weekly sells at a certain level, not just hold it because I think weekly is going to continue lower and lower and lower. Okay. I have to trust my higher time frame, and I have to understand that I'm taking that weekly sell as a added position, as a hedge, and I know where that weekly sell I need to be taking profit at because my monthly direction is stronger. Okay. Also, when I say you have to be adaptable, it just means that you're not married to a certain trade. You're not married to a certain bias. Okay. You can change your bias in a second. You could have buys and then you're like, you know what? I want to take sells. Sells make more sense right now. You take your sells and then you can go back down and take buys again. It just, you have to be flexible with it and be very adaptable to every situation and understand that, because what I see a lot of people did last week is they were waiting and waiting and waiting for buys on NAS, and you could have taken sells on NAS. Okay. But you're so married to one bias that you're only focused on buys, right? And every buy you're taking, you're losing because you're so married to the buys. When you need to be adaptable, what is the market giving me right now? Is it giving me H4 sells? Is it giving me H1 sells? Is it giving me whatever sells you're looking at? Is it giving me H1 buys? If it's not, then look for sells. Okay. You got to be fluid and you got to be adaptable. And that ability comes obviously over time and understanding how the market is fractal and how it has objectives, but you don't know when those objectives are going to be met. Okay, that nobody knows. And price can trade from H4 to H4 to H4 to H4 to H4 to H4, just like gold did this last couple weeks. Okay, just H4 to H4 to H4 to H4, but main bias is what? Monthly buys, okay? Weekly sells. So we have to understand that fractal nature of this market. Okay, so anyways, let's look here. Let me annotate. Okay, so in our markets, we have two sets of time frames. Okay, so our first set, if our monthly is buys, then we have daily buys, H1 buys, M15 buys, and M1 buys. Okay, and if the monthly is in buy direction, then we have sell direction in weekly, H4, M30, and M5. Okay, so there's two sets of time frames. So if I have monthly buys, then I should have weekly sells. If I have weekly sells, then I should have daily buys. If I have daily buys, I should have H4 sells, H1 buys, M30 sells, M15 buys, M5 sells, M1 buys. Okay, that's how the market is broken down fractally. Okay, now we also have roadblocks. Okay, and our objective is if our monthly is in buys and we have a daily setup, then we need to break a weekly roadblock. We have weekly sells, H4 setup, then we need to break a daily setup. Okay, so each time frame, each lower time frame needs to break a higher time frame in order for the momentum to continue in that favor. Okay. So when we look at this chart, we have to understand that, for example, let's say we had H4 sell or monthly buys, and then we have a daily setup with a weekly roadblock. Okay, so in order for price to continue, we need to break this weekly from the daily to get to our next monthly level. Now, if we have monthly and the daily setup, right, like that's kind of a big stop loss most likely from this daily, and we never enter off daily anyways. So what does that mean? Well, we have also H1, we have M15, and we have M1 that we can also be taking buys from, right? Because we're waiting for the direction of these now. But just because, let's say we have a M15, okay, we're dropping down to the M15 bias. So our setup for buys on our M15 is going to be from M1, and we need to break in M5, okay, to continue our bias. Okay, so if we have M15, we need to drop down to M1 and break in M5. If the M5 breaks, okay, then what is our next level? M30. Okay, we're working backwards now. So now our M1, we can't go back and forth like this. We can't go from M1 to M30. You can't do that. You have to break M5. Okay, that's where most people lose. They think that M1 is going to break M30 or H4, but you have to take it level by level. M1 needs to break M5, right? Cool. Our M30, now we switch to the M15 chart. Our M30 needs to be broken by M15. Okay, then we switch to an hourly chart. Our hourly chart, let's say we have whatever hourly structure, needs to break our H4. Okay, and that's how you work on holding an M1 trade to the highest level, which would be your monthly. Now, for example, let's say, let me draw this. Let's say our M1 does break our M5, and then now we're at this time frame. We're at the M15 time frame. Okay, we're here now. Okay, on our M15 buys, right? So on our M15 buys, And let's say we respect this M30 cell. We go back to our M30 cell. We look at an M5 setup, and now we need to break the M15 buys, okay? So our M30 needs to break the M15, okay? So here is our roadblock, right? M30 roadblock is M15. So now we can ping pong from M1 buys to M30 sells. So we're just using our guide here, okay? I hope that's making sense so far. Okay, this is pretty much the only way I can explain this visually. Remember, there's two sets of time frames. Okay, if this is our buy direction, then these are our sell directions fractally. If we have buys in monthly, then we should see weekly sells. Okay, so let's come from here. We have a monthly direction, a daily setup, and a weekly roadblock, right? Monthly is a weekly roadblock. Weekly is a daily roadblock, right? We know this. This is what has been taught in Storyline. Our setup for buys should come from daily because daily is in our buy timeframes if monthly is a buy direction. Okay, so if our daily setup here, this is our daily setup, is right here, we can always drop down to H1 or M15 or M1. Okay, we can always do that. So for example, if we're in this daily setup zone for buys, right? And I don't want to take, obviously from a daily buy, I can drop to my H1, right? Wait for H1 setup here, okay, to break H4. Once it breaks H4, I can take my entry. Oops. I can take my entry from my H1 support. Okay, very simple. Now let's say I want to, instead of H1, I want to wait for M15. Okay, so my setup on M15 is here. I need to wait for an M30 break. To take a trade from my M15 again. Okay, so if M15 breaks M30, then I know I can buy the M15 support. Okay, so at this point, I'm here. And I need to break this guy. And if this guy breaks, I can switch to this time frame now. I can go to my H1 time frame for buys. Okay, and if my H1 time frame breaks H4, then I know I can target my daily. Very simple, very simple. You really need to memorize this entire, I wouldn't say schematic, I get, this time frame layout. You just have to understand, you just have to understand that there are two sets of time frames for whatever direction, and that they're going to be the opposite. And your opposite is your roadblock. Your setup is going to be 2 time frames lower, your direction of your higher time frame. Okay, I'm gonna let that digest for a second while I grab a cup of water. I'm back. That was probably like a second for you guys, but okay. So for example, let's look at, clear all my drawings. Let's say we were taking a setup from M1. Setup in M1. Roadblock in M5. Okay. Roadblock in M5. M1 setup to get to M15. Okay, so I am working this way down the chart. Okay, so from M1, we need to break M5 to get to M15, right? If we break M5, I can take my entry from M1, right? Now, if I'm at M15 chart, where I'm on the M15 time frame, here, what's my roadblock? M30, right here. Okay, if M15 breaks M30, H1. Okay, so we're working down the time frames. But now let's say on your H1, right, from M15 that broke the M30, let's say that didn't happen. How do I draw? Here we go. Let's say that didn't happen. Oops. Okay. And it failed to break the M30, right? From M15, we failed to break the M30, so we're most likely not going to get to this H1. It failed to break. Then I know I either should TP on my M1 or look for sells on my M30. Okay, so if I have my M30 right here, I need to look for my M15 roadblock, which is here. Okay, and my setup will be on M5 from my M30. Okay, so I know it sounds very difficult at first, but trust me, if you study this, you'll be able to enter the market at any point, anywhere. Okay, so for example, if we have, let's say we have a weekly direction of sells, then I know I can enter the market at H4, or I can enter the market at M30, right? So if I have, let's say we're doing market at H4, I have my setup in M30, and then I have my roadblock in H1. Okay, I have to break the H1 roadblock in order to get to my daily, right? Because we're on H4, M30, roadblock in H1. We know H4, to get to daily, we need to break H1. So memorize this entire thing. This is like a times table. This whole thing you need to be memorizing. This is what's gonna make or break you. Okay, so you really need to study this. Now, if you're already profitable right now and you have consistency and you're profitable, I mean, you don't just do what you're continuously doing. But if you really want that deep understanding, then study the fuck out of this, because this is the fractal nature of the market. This is how you do multiple time frame. This is paired with storyline. This is how it works. Okay, we understand in storyline that monthly will go to monthly, and that storyline will be complete. Weekly will go to weekly. So if I have a monthly storyline, let's recap on this real quick. Let me take my mouse. So if we have monthly storyline and weekly in between, right? Monthly resistance, monthly support, weekly resistance, weekly support. Okay, so from our monthly, this created our monthly, and we're back down to monthly, and we need to get back up to monthly, right? But we have a roadblock of weekly resistance. Weekly resistance is going to find weekly support until storyline is complete. Now it's just going to be doing this until we have a breakout to get to our monthly level, because we already traded to our monthly level, right? So if you're getting stuck inside this consolidation here and you're not sure which way the market is going, trust your higher time frame, right? We trade from monthly, down, we need to complete monthly buyers to monthly sellers up here. Okay, and our weekly buyers or weekly sellers are going to pair with the weekly buyers down here. Okay, and then you have your weekly complete for the monthly to become complete. Okay, and then obviously you have your daily between dailies inside. Okay, so let's look at monthly. Let's just look at this price action and I don't know, somewhere in here. Okay, so in here we have, are we on monthly? Yeah, we're on monthly. Actually, let's look over here since this is more recent. Okay, so we have a monthly support, monthly resistance, monthly support. Okay, so we made a support, we traded back up into this monthly resistance, right? So what is it going to do? It's going to find a monthly support. Monthly support from monthly to monthly, right? We have a monthly level here. Okay, and what happened after that? After price came down and found this monthly level, we made a new monthly level. Monthly to monthly, monthly to monthly. Okay, after this monthly had been made, we had made a monthly resistance here, right? Monthly resistance, price came down, came back up to monthly, monthly to monthly, monthly to monthly. We finally break out to find the next monthly level, and then the monthly level after that, and monthly level after that. Okay, now let's break that down a little more. So for example, we have this monthly resistance and this monthly support, okay? And price traded up into that. Let's look at our weekly. Okay, we also have this weekly QM that price traded to, came back down and found our weekly level. Very simple. Okay, so weekly to weekly is now complete. And then we trade back up to the next weekly level here. Then we trade back down to weekly support. Then we trade back up to weekly curve to find weekly support, right? Price moves up to find weekly resistance. Price trades back down to find weekly support. Okay, so we understand weekly needs to trade to weekly to complete the storyline. So let's look at this again. Weekly support, weekly resistance. Okay, why did price drop from here? Daily resistance to find daily support. Storyline is now complete, but we know the overall direction at this point in time was that monthly level. So price is going to actually come up to the monthly because we understand that. So if we're taking sells, and we're taking buys, we understand that our buys are going to be stronger because we have a monthly direction. So we should be closing our daily to daily. Okay, so we understand how each storyline is moving back and forth to find the other counterpart to it. Okay, but let's look here. Okay, so let's say whatever direction this was, right? So here we have a daily breakout, daily support, daily QM. Okay, what do we need to look at if we have that daily breakout? We need to find our H1 setup. Okay, but we have an H4 roadblock. So if we have H4 roadblock, we need to break H1 from M30. Okay, so if we were to take a trade, let me remove these drawings. So daily, we automatically know that H4 is where we want to be selling from, right? Because we had daily breakout. So we need to find H4 sells at whatever level on time frame. But for example, we're looking for those H1 buys at this point because we have a daily breakout. Okay, and one thing to note is if we trade to a level and we miss the next level, right? Price, if it's coming down, it's going to find the next level to trade from. Okay, so here it found this level and then it moved and it broke structure, but then it came to some sort of resistance over here, right? Came back up, found some QM level here, moved, and then price, instead of reacting here again, it's going to find the next level below it here. Okay, but anyways, you had your H1, H1 right here, right? H1 breakout. Okay, so your H1 breaks out. What do we need to look for on H1 breakout? H4. H4 had been broken out right here. Okay. So H1 moves up. We understand that at this level, it had broken out of H4. So I can take my buy at H1. Okay. And then we obviously get this pretty nice move after that. Okay. Because we understand the market fractally, right? H1, this H1 right here broke the H4. We broke the higher time frame. Okay. So from H1, we can take that trade. Okay. So H1 from the daily, roadblock H4. Okay, targeting our daily. Okay, I'm going to probably wrap this video up and go over it more during the week. And then we'll also be adding trendline confluences. Okay, because trendlines are great as well. You just have to know how to use them properly. Anyways, so, you know, these time frames, just understand this entire chart, understand this, understand how we work backwards in our buys and backwards in our sells, but each roadblock it needs to be broken, right? We need to break the next roadblock in order to get to the next time frame. Okay, and you can work back and forth, because if they fail, then you know where you should be looking at. Okay, so if we were here on that daily chart and we took our buys from the hourly in here, and then we understand that we have H4 roadblocks, we need to understand where those roadblocks are. Our H4 roadblock. This is from our hourly buy. We broke H4 here, right? This was our H4. We broke it. Next H4 levels here from here, right? Because we bought off H1, we're buying off H1, then we need to break the next H4 levels, H4 levels, H4 levels, H4 levels, and then boom, H4 level, pull back, rally up, H4 level, or H4 level.